Is success more about attitude or circumstances? I remember being in Army basic training, and when me and my other recruits started to complain about our circumstances, our drill sergeant would always remind us in his smooth baritone voice that if we didn't stop whining like little and get our act together, get up, buck up, and do our job, he was gonna stick his size 13 boots so far up our asses that it would tickle our tonsils.
Yes, drill sergeant!
It was as inspiring as it was terrifying. The man was a veritable Shakespeare with profanity. But it also taught us an important lesson. The mindset he was teaching us to have was essentially to stop complaining about your circumstances and find a way to overcome challenges. And this is good advice, not just for the challenges we were currently facing in basic training, but for life in general. Because there's no shortage of examples of what happens when people heed that kind of advice versus those who insist on perfect conditions before acting. Take, for instance, Madam C.J. Walker, born in 1867, who made a fortune by developing and marketing a line of cosmetics and hair care products for Black women. She not only helped herself, she helped thousands of other people at a time when it was incredibly challenging to do so. Or Nikola Tesla, who immigrated to the U.S. in 1884 with no real connections, no degree, and yet began working with Thomas Edison, and later went on to be one of the most renowned inventors in American history. If you've seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness starring Will Smith, well, then we learned about the story of Chris Gardner, who was a homeless salesman trying to raise his son on the streets of San Francisco in the 1980s. In a chance meeting with a financial executive in a cab, he solves a Rubik's Cube and gets an internship opportunity at the firm, later going on to start his own firm. Any one of these people could have justifiably pointed to the struggles they faced that were not of their own making. They could have waited for politicians to make the world more equitable and bring about some sort of cosmic justice. But they weren't willing to wait. Instead of focusing on unfairness or the so-called privilege of others, they looked for opportunities. And it would be easy to say that they're simply the exceptional ones. And while they're certainly incredible people, it was the difference in their attitude, not their circumstances, that made the difference between success and failure. Fast forward to the 2020s, and we find ourselves living in a time with unprecedented opportunity, and yet many people can't see anything but disadvantage. They use every single inequity as evidence of some sort of injustice that has to be overcome before they can act. And while fighting for greater opportunities and equal justice before the law is a noble undertaking, convincing people that they are horribly oppressed at a time when opportunities abound serves only to discourage people from working hard and taking those critical risks that will allow them to pursue opportunities and ultimately happiness. So if we really want to find role models worth admiring, maybe instead of heaping more praise onto politicians that promise to take care of us or that they can correct every sort of inequity in the world, we should focus more on the stories of those who saw challenges in their life not as barriers, but as opportunities to demonstrate what they were really made of. People that seized those opportunities and ended up benefiting not only themselves, but thousands of others. Are you one of those people that has overcome difficult circumstances in order to be a success? Share your story in the comments. Also, consider liking and subscribing and checking out our other videos on the Wyman.